Well, part of al-Sisi's rift with the business community stems from his funding of social programs, and he's also using foreign aid to fund them. For more on this, I spoke with Bessman Momami. She's a professor of international affairs at the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. I asked her how long al-Sisi can rely on foreign aid.
Well, he's had generous benefactors. Without a doubt, countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates continue to have given him support. But I think that, in the era of $30 a barrel of oil, and not the 100 that many of these countries had been initially banking on, I don't think that is going to last for much longer. And that's really the fear, I think, of the Sisi regime, is that they're not going to get the usual support that they've gotten from the Gulf countries, which has been absolutely instrumental in not only shoring up the budget for salary payments. In some cases, it's literally directly paying for civil servants, but also shoring up the currency by putting money in the central bank. All of that, I believe, is going to come to an end. Not to forget also on the political side, the Egyptian government, particularly Sisi, has done some things that have not been in favor to the favor of what the Saudis and the Emiratis have wanted. Particularly on the case of Syria, we've seen Egypt Sisi support Assad and the Russian involvement specifically, which is something that obviously the Saudis and the Emiratis vehemently oppose. So they're not really pleased with how their benefactor or their patron has been really acting.
And one of the things you mentioned is currency concerns. There's also fears of inflation in Egypt. How do you see that developing?
Yeah, and that really hits the poor very hard. Obviously, their money is not going nearly as far. The devaluation, which was brought in to try and help curb that, and also bring the currency in line with the reality of a loss of faith in that currency. This devaluation by the Egyptian government is to try and bring it more in line with what we see is happening on the black market, whereby we know that there's a huge dollar shortage of hard currency. Many businesses, not just people who need to travel and get access to dollars, but businesses who plan on importing products can't buy the import goods because there's a huge dollar shortage in the country. And they need dollars and hard currency more generally to continue their business. But that stems from the reality that we have had a huge drop in tourism, no doubt related to the rise in terrorism in Sinai, and obviously the downing of the Russian plane, the overall lack of confidence in the Sisi regime, the very bad press they've gotten with the Al Jazeera journalists, and also so tourism is a key way to attract foreign currency. And the second is the Suez Canal, which has not delivered either because global trade is down enormously. And so we've seen the Egyptian economy suffer as a result of both of those factors.
Now, you've hit on several issues that are plaguing the Egyptian economy. What about any bright spots? Are there any things that could perhaps stand out that could really lift Egypt's economy?
Well, it's really hard to find bright spots right now. I think that one thing that we don't really undercover very much has been silently creeping up in parts of Egypt is a huge entrepreneurial class of young people who are really quite innovative and creative and are doing a lot to try and make their way despite, I think, what is structural economic challenges. These are small enterprises, obviously really trying to struggle in scaling up. They've been able to attract some venture capital, but again, if the whole economy, as well as the regional dynamics, are not in their favor, there is a limitation to how successful they can be.
And just lastly, as you mentioned those regional dynamics, how do you think instability in the region is going to play out when it comes to Egypt and its economy?
Well, Egypt is the most populous Arab country, and so much of the Egyptian diaspora is in many other parts of the Arab world, so it can intimately tie and affect Egypt quite directly. But also the region suffers from a negative neighborhood effect. So even though events in Syria may be localized, the reality is that the entire region is suffering, and people assume that there is it's a part of the same neighborhood, and therefore will not travel, will not invest. And even though that may not be an accurate picture of the entire Middle East and North Africa, they do often suffer from that regional dynamic.